Charleston. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. For those of you I've not met, my name is Todd McCaffrey. I'm the Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the state of South Carolina. And on my far left, I'm joined by the Chairman of the Military Base Task Force, Mr. Dan Beatty. And of course, we're also honored here by these two distinguished gentlemen at the front table, Governor Henry McMaster and the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the state of South Carolina, the Honorable Murrell Smith. So we're pleased to have you both with us today. And thank you for joining us for the annual South Carolina Commanders Brief to the Governor. Governor, we're honored by having commanders and senior enlisted advisors from 8 military bases in South Carolina. And for the record, geographically, we do claim Fort Gordon as South Carolina territory. So we're pleased.
Great to be here, Governor. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. So we're going to try to make that more formal as we go. And on the other side of the conference, there on the back side of these tables, sir, we've got representatives from a number of our state agencies that are listed in your program here. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to collaborate and coordinate with us today with these commanders. So the purpose of today's forum really is to understand what's occurring at the military base in South Carolina and provide a forum and an opportunity for commanders and senior enlisted advisors to dialogue with the governor and also, of course, with the state of South Carolina agency heads. We value that collaboration, we value that partnership, and we appreciate the comprehensive collection that we have here today. So as we get started, Dan Beatty will run the agenda through this, but Governor, I want to give you an opportunity to make any initial comments, and then the Speaker as well.
I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. We'll try to be on time. I would just urge everybody to remember that the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. Everybody's heard that. We try to be a little bit informal. We believe in being informal, and when we're meeting with businesses and others from around the country, around the world, we give out a phone number, and sometimes they call, sometimes we call them. You don't have to have a meeting if you want to talk. The military bases, all that personnel in South Carolina gives us really a unique feel and opportunity. It adds to the strength of the state. We have a great military tradition. It's something that makes our state different. Just a couple of things you might want to know, and the Speaker has done this over in Sumter, in an academy. Is it Liberty STEAM? Is that the name of it? That's the name of it. These are charter schools. They're public schools, but they get public money, but they're charter. There's Ellen Weaver, who's the head superintendent of education. Raise your hand there. And but they emphasize, for instance, raise over. This is the one, the American Leadership Academy. I went to that when they opened it up. And it's all about, they call it RAISE. It's respect, accountability, integrity, service, and excellence. And it is the kind of thing that they like to be near military bases because those are the kind of people that are generally on military bases, and these schools can provide great educations for your children. We have two authorizers for charter schools in our state, and we believe we believe that one size never fits all, that you have to have choice, you have to have differences, and we try to model the schools around what the young people need. But your presence is something that is enormously important to the state, to the people of the state, so we're glad you're here, want to learn from you, and our rules are to communicate, collaborate, and cooperate. Every time we do it, we do better. When we keep everything in silos, we struggle. It's just as easy as ABC, although it's CCC. So we thank you for being here, and is it Murrell?
It is, yes, sir.
It's the Speaker of the House, Murrell Smith.
Thank you, Governor. It's an honor to be with you all today, and I appreciate you coming, and this is a great opportunity for us to hear your concerns, and I always want to be a part of that. Let me tell you, I'm from a military community in Sumter, and I am very proud to come from there. As those of you who are familiar with it, we call our motto in Sumter is uncommon patriotism. And the one thing we are is we're very, very proud of our military community with Shaw Air Force Base, and which also contains ARCENT, which is very proud to have them as our neighbor, our partner over the past few years. And I always say this, is Shaw Air Force Base is very dear to me and my family, as my wife's great uncle is the one that Shaw Air Force Base is named after, Irvin Shaw, who was a pilot in World War I and was killed in action. And so it's an honor for me to be a part of this and for all the military community. You guys, I don't need to tell you this, the governor, we got one of the greatest governor, or not one, you got the greatest governor in the country over here, sorry. But I want to tell you, the one thing the governor has done such a great job with over these years in his term is economic development and creating jobs for South Carolina. But when we talk about creating jobs for South Carolina, we have a ready-made industry here in South Carolina. That's our military community. And I look at what happens in Sumter, and I'm sure we're going to hear about this, but we have 31,000 active duty military, family, and retirees in our community with a tremendous couple $1 billion impact into Sumter County. They are the Shaw Air Force Base and its components are one of the largest, or is the largest industry in Sumter County and probably around anywhere in our 3-county region. But you look at the state, and this is what I always want to remember, is that the state, the economic impact of the military community in South Carolina is $34 billion and 250,000 jobs. It's 11.2% of our economy in this state. And the military community generates 1 of every 9 jobs in South Carolina. This translates to the 10th highest density of service members in this nation. So we think of you and your bases as one of our economic drivers. And so just like any industry, just like any company that comes to South Carolina, we want to be your partner. We want to help you and make sure that we're doing what you need in order to be successful in your mission. So it's a pleasure to be with you all. I look forward to hearing from each of you. And if we can ever do anything to assist you genuinely, whether it's in Sumter or any other installation around this state, please don't ever hesitate to contact us. Thank you, Governor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. And I should note, our teammates from Shaw are on the way in. They ran into some traffic issues coming in, so I'm just going to, those seats are empty for a long term. They'll be coming here shortly. So with that, I'd like to turn to Mr. Dan Beatty, and Dan will take us through the sequence here for a bit and begin the discussion. So.
Fantastic. So 68,000 Department of Defense service personnel in the state, as the Speaker of the House said, number 8 in the nation with density of military personnel. So leading off with this will be Fort Jackson, Brigadier General Jason Kelly and his Command Sergeant Major Eric Oakes.
Could I interrupt for just one moment?
Yes, sir.
Could we have, I don't know if everyone knows the agency heads that are here.
Yes,
If we could have them raise your hand and say who you are and what you do or what you're supposed to do. Colonel
I'm
Sweeto.
Kevin Schwado. I'm sort of dual-headed. I run the Department of Motor Vehicles for the state, and the governor lets me serve as the civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army for all of South Carolina and Fort Eisenhower, Fort Gordon, soon to be the transition there.
And Colonel was, what, Deputy Commander at Fort Jackson for how many years?
4 years, sir.
Okay. He's qualified.
Hello, I'm Mike Lease, State Director for the South Carolina Department of Social Services. We provide lots of different type of services across the state. We serve 1 in 6 citizens in South Carolina.
Hi, I'm Adam Wagner. I'm the Director of Business and Federal Programs at the South Carolina Department of
Could you
Employment.
speak into the microphone, please? A little bit closer. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Adam Wagner. I'm the Director of Business and Federal Programs at the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce. I'm representing Mr. William Floyd today.
Good afternoon. I'm Harry Lightsey. I'm Secretary of the Department of Commerce for South Carolina.
Hello, Ellen Weaver, State Superintendent of Education. We still actually elect this office as a constitutional office holder here in South Carolina, and I am the proud sister of a retired Army veteran, served in the 101st, did 2 tours in Iraq, so it's an honor to be here today.
Emily Farr. I am the Director of the Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation. And what we really do is keep South Carolina a safe place to work and live. We do that through the fire service, through training, code enforcement, and emergency response at State Fire. We do it through our labor programs, and the South Carolina OSHA program is underneath our agency, and we also do it through licensing. Through almost every profession that requires a license in our state are licensed through our agency.
Jonathan Jones, State Fire Marshal. I'm Deputy Director of the Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation over the State Fire Division, and we are responsible for enforcement of the fire code statewide, as well as fire training and emergency response in regards to firefighting and search and rescue.
Good afternoon. I'm Justin Powell, Chief Operating Officer of the South Carolina Department of Transportation. We own and operate the fourth largest state highway system in the country.
I'm Ben Duncan, of the Office of Resilience, which is an office under the governor, which I know too well. We are responsible for disaster recovery, resilience, and mitigation. We have many storm projects going on right now for storm drainage and home protection projects. And we have many grants going on to help our citizens of South Carolina.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Dan?
Back to Fort Jackson. General
Governor
Kelly.
McMaster, Honorable Smith, Secretary McCaffrey, fellow commanders, senior leaders, members of the Military Base Task Force, and distinguished guests. Thank you for this opportunity. I absolutely welcome the chance to update you on the current status of Fort Jackson and to briefly outline what I see and what I'll call the foreseeable future. As it has for more than a century, Fort Jackson continues to benefit from our strong and enduring ties with the people of Columbia, the Midlands region, and the great state of South Carolina. I remain honored to have a role in this incredible community. I look forward to our limitless opportunities to connect with our off-post neighbors and showcase your Army. Our goal is to strengthen our strategic contribution to Army readiness. As we do this, we remain the gateway to the Army. We do this by focusing on 4 enduring priorities. Our people, we'll always keep them first. Training and developing leaders. Our core purpose. Quality of life and persistent community engagement. Governor, since we last convened, we have successfully supported Army accessions by leveraging the significant positive outcomes of the Future Soldier Preparation Course, or FSPC as it's commonly known. This course equips those with a propensity to serve, those that desire to become a soldier, with the tools to overcome individual obstacles. It enables them to join our amazing team. From August of last year to date, over 10,000, I'll say that again, 10,000 trainees have graduated from this basic combat training preparation program. This is a population of volunteers who now meet all qualifications to serve, all qualifications for enlistment in our volunteer Army. And we're doing this without sacrificing quality, and we are meeting the needs of our force. When it comes to infrastructure, more specifically facility improvement on our installation, sir, we appreciate your support and your continued advocacy. Your full-throated endorsement greatly aids our ability to make American soldiers for our Army and our nation. Fort Jackson is very fortunate to be located in a military-friendly state. We go to great lengths to build upon the trust, the understanding, and the support of our community partners in Columbia, the Midlands, and throughout South Carolina. We also happily welcome and receive the 250,000 annual visitors from across the nation that tour our installation, participate in basic combat training, family day and graduation activities, military retirement ceremonies, or make Columbia and Fort Jackson their destination of choice for large military organization reunions. Our annual economic contribution to South Carolina exceeds $4.2 billion, with more than $2 billion going directly to the Midlands region as goods and services for our guests. The daily support we receive from our community partners throughout South Carolina significantly enhances our ability to attract so many visitors. Moreover, the benefits and incentives afforded our veterans and military retirees considerably impact their decision to make South Carolina their permanent home after exiting military service. Governor, the phrase "work together," I don't think actually fully captures Fort Jackson's relationship with the Columbia area in South Carolina. Live together, I think, is more accurate. A large majority of our civilian workforce, our retirees, soldiers, and their families reside in the surrounding communities. We're church members, we coach youth sports, we're neighborhood association members, we participate in so many school-related activities. I'm happy to report that we don't just reside in South Carolina, we are part of the fabric of South Carolina. So I appreciate the time you've afforded me today to share and look forward to fielding any questions you or any others may have.
And I don't know if there's any questions for General Kelly and Fort Jackson. I'll just make a comment. I'll tell you that the work that's been done on the Future Soldier Prep Course, I know some of the other services are adopting similar models of that process, because this recruiting issue has been a major strategic issue, and there's lots of reasons for it. But I'll tell you what the Army and some of the other services are doing now, I think, is a key piece of getting ahead of that curve, and you're starting to see some changes in that, so I appreciate you outlining that.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll have Joint Base Charleston with Colonel Mike Freeman and Chief Master Sergeant Dave Snar.
Good afternoon, Governor McMaster, Speaker Smith, Secretary McCaffrey, and Chairman Beatty. Just thank you for having us here today. We really appreciate all the support to Joint Base Charleston, to all of our installations and military members. I would like to specifically thank you for the Military Enhancement Grant Program, for creating it and supporting it. It's a wonderful program that we're taking advantage of, and it not only does it support all of the military members, but it ties us even closer to our counties and cities and our local communities where we already have great partnerships. So thank you for that. Governor, I also want to specifically thank you and your Department of Social Services for supporting us as we added South Carolina to the My Child Care in Your Neighborhood Plus program this last year. Through that program, all of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines in South Carolina are going to get access to additional DoD resources for child care because of the support that your department put for us on that. Lastly, I want to thank you for this forum. It's been a great forum. It's been effective for us from what we brought last year, and I'll comment on some of that briefly. But thank you for having it. Speaker Smith, thank you for joining it this year. I think that's a wonderful addition. I want to specifically call out Sandy Claypool and thank her for all the effort that she puts into putting this together and for following up on the various taskers throughout the year. It's a tough job, and she does a great job with it. So with that, I'll move into the three issues that I sent forward and got some feedback on. The first one is driver's license process for military members. So I brought this one forward last year, and what we're looking for is to either reduce or eliminate the 180-day waiting period from permit to license for military members. What we see is as society is changing, less and less of the young men and women that join the force have driver's license these days. And this will help all of the military members in South Carolina, but most acutely it's going to help the Nuclear Navy training pipeline that's at Joint Base Charleston. So anybody that joins the Nuclear Navy comes through Joint Base Charleston, and to the tune of about 5,000 sailors a year that graduate that program. We brought this issue forward last year. We had very, very productive conversations with Executive Director Schwedo. He came down and spent a full day with us, touring and talking and getting boots on the ground of what was going on there. And I think at this point we both agree that there's not a safety concern to South Carolina to do this. As I understand it, he's put forward some legislative language to reduce across the entire state, not just for the military, but for all members of South Carolina, all citizens, to reduce that if you're 18 years old to a 30-day waiting period by 180. If that legislation can get through the legislature this year, that would solve our problem and provide a great relief to us. If there's a problem, we're getting that statewide, and there's a room to do it for just the military. That would also support us as maybe a trial thing in the interim. For that nuclear Navy, as they're learning physics and nuclear power, they're also having to get their driver's license before they graduate the first schoolhouse and get to the second one and start living on the economy. So it's a big, complicated thing for them to get through. They're managing it, but it would certainly be a relief to get that support. The second item that we have is infrastructure. So for probably all of South Carolina, but definitely for the Charleston metro region, and the dynamic growth that's happening down there, which is a wonderful thing, but brings challenges. Home prices go up and people move further and further out, which puts more people on the roads. Shipping's improving, which puts more trucks on the roads, and there's just a lot of bottlenecks. And what I'll tell you is we greatly appreciate the partnership and support of the Department of Transportation within the whole region. So there's a Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester County of Governments that puts together a Charleston area transportation study. So they call it the BCD COG and CHATS, which are acronyms that aren't even military acronyms, right? They're local acronyms that we're using down there. But there's a lot of great work that's happening through that, and Joint Base Charleston's got a seat at the table, and we're part of that, and it's a lot of wonderful progress being made to address the congestion. Last year, I brought 2 specific roads that are feeders to the Charleston Joint Base, and Secretary Hall agreed to work with us on it. Justin Powell, who's sitting here today, came down and we had some productive meetings on it. Proud to and glad to know that the Dorchester Road is funded. It's being planned and it's going to get executed. It's going to get widened, which will provide great support. So that's kind of already in the win column. The one that still has work to do is Red Bank Road, which is it's a feeder to the Navy weapons station, and it's also a throughput that goes through the weapons station. There's a long kind of complicated history on it, but it was actually built by the South Carolina Department of Transportation in the 60s, even though it's on federal land, through a partnership back then, and it's been an agreement and a partnership and an easement to maintain it since then. So we found out that the easement has lapsed, and we're working on getting that renewed. And then what we're working on, and I just got a chance to get update with Justin Powell today, we're going to work the planning for that as the easement's getting worked. I think that easement will come into effect over the next year, but we're not going to wait for the easement to finish before we start the planning. And I think 10, 15 years ago, there was a plan to expand that entire 2-mile road from 2 lanes to 3 or 4 lanes. I don't think you'll need to do all of that to address the congestion. I think you can do some smarter planning, and we'll look at how to get after that. And it could lead to another military enhancement grant to look at a traffic study of it to get us where we need to be. The third issue that we have is spouse licensure. And I also want to thank South Carolina on licensure. So the state has done a lot to support licensure, and both the executive and legislative branches have already made meaningful impacts in this area that's being felt by our spouses. Emily Farr and the team at Labor Licensing and Regulation, they work very hard to do 30-day licenses for military spouses with minimal paperwork, and that's in the trenches work that they're doing every day to keep that going, and we really appreciate that. There's several things that come behind it. The ask that we have at this point is for South Carolina to implement the provisions of the Military Spouse Licensing Act. So that's a federal act that was put into place back in 2021. And I think there's some complications there, and I don't think there's full agreement there between your department and our request. I think it could require some legislation, and it will certainly require some work from the executive side too. I think that would definitely improve the situation for our military spouses, but this is something that it continually needs work. And despite the fact that South Carolina has done a lot of work, very meaningful, I think there's work left to be done. In addition to that, South Carolina has done a great job with compacts, and they keep coming along, and we're working on those. And then they continue to do exactly what Emily and the team is doing, about 30 days with minimal paperwork. But that Spouse Relief Licensure Act would be helpful in addition to that. So thank you very much, and those are our issues.
We've got a couple of things that Colonel Freeman raised up, and I think for a couple folks, so maybe Director Schwedo first on the licensing piece, and then we'll come over to Director Farr on the spousal licensing issue, because I know we've been in collaboration with both of these, and I know there's been a good discussion going on between the entities on this one. So,
Number one, I want to thank Colonel Freeman and Command Master Chief Snar for the visit. We've got a gem that I didn't know existed down there, and the Air Force showing me the Navy, almost painful for an old soldier to hear. But they've got 3,000 individuals that are down there for nuke school. And at the end of 1 year, they graduate and they're going on to a hands-on nuke school. So we've got 6,000 sailors that most people are unaware of in this state. We've got a huge problem nationally in that kids don't get driver's licenses at 16 anymore. And the bigger issue is they wait until they're 19 and the military doesn't recruit them with a license. So there's a huge problem. They hit us up with last time, and they were 100% accurate, and that is that South Carolina has a 6-month wait time from permit till the time you can get a license. And that when you have 6,000 sailors, many of which live off post, many of which don't have a driver's license, many of which want a driver's license to get back on, are adversely impacted. Now, it's not just a South Carolina problem, it's a nationwide problem. And so I tried to attack this from multiple stance. I have not gotten back with Colonel Freeman on this, but I wrote a note to the senior leaders at the Pentagon with one option. One option nationwide is, why don't we treat the military the same way we treat our Native Americans and allow them to license each other internally? Because we've got a greater problem than just the soldiers. We've got problems with, for example, the families of those service members. If you go to Korea and you go from age 15 to 16 or Japan, you got to wait until you come home to start your license process because you can't get an international license without the baseline in the state. So if they had, the same thing as I accept Native American licenses when they leave the reservation, they come, we swap them out one for one. There is that option. Right now, that appears to be in the too hard box, to be honest with you, but it's at least being, put forward as an option. Another option was 5th Corps, which runs the combat forces for Germany and Europe, are stationed at Fort Knox. They want a mobile training team quarterly from the Kentucky Department of Motor Vehicles that they will pay for to go up and license those individuals that are in Germany. And they haven't approved it yet, but that becomes an option for any state if they're willing to go ahead and to resource that. Now let me get to South Carolina specifically, which is the big issue there. We're getting tremendous support, Mr. Speaker, from the legislature, but part of it is the legislative process. So does North Carolina and Georgia have a waiting program? No, they go from permit to license conceivably same day. The 180 days, long before I got there, but was largely tied to a practice period to make sure individuals were safe enough to drive. So based upon talking to North Carolina and Georgia, they say they haven't seen a statistical increase in the number of accidents through the accelerated program, which is when I took what is good for the goose is good for the gander. Why don't we make that the policy for the entire state, both military and civilian? And it went into committee, and the issue was we don't think that we can just completely write off the entire period, so we re-proposed it as a 30-day standard. And that is 30 days to practice and walk right in. I thought it was a fair comparison. And the discussion we're having in the legislature is a fair comparison. And that is it truly safe to do it without a waiting period? If it is, then let's approve it for everybody. If it's not, let's approve it for nobody, which is sort of where the debate needs to be right now. When we go back into session, the 30-day option goes back into the committee to change it from a 6-month period on. I don't know which way it'll end up, Mr. Speaker, whether I won't fight either one. I'm going to be there to support the military, but I would like to see it being everybody, because if it's safe for the military and it's safe for the state, let's take that 6-month period and remove it down to a month. And hopefully the next time we come back here, we are all on the same sheet of music, and we've got something that is the best policy for the state and the military.
Well, Director, I would say when I'm 55 years old, so I'm ancient now, standards, but it was 30 days when we had our license, and that was in the 1980s, and I didn't see that creating a lot of wrecks or problems, and somehow it creeped up over the time. So certainly we'll make sure that we look at that closely and see if we can help aid you in trying to find a resolution.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I will add that in addition to all of that, not just North Carolina and Georgia, but 37 of 50 states, this is not an issue for military members. A lot of those are because statewide policy, but some of those are military set-asides. But 37 of 50 states, there's not a waiting period for military members 18 years or older.
So for 18 years or older
Yes, sir.
military members,
Correct.
straight to the license?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Kevin, thanks. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, Director Farr, did you want to comment on the licensure?
Sure, on the licensure issue. As Colonel Freeman mentioned, we do try at the agency to always process the military spouse applications as quickly as possible. Our goal is always 30 days or less, but frankly, it's usually much less than even that. But overall, the agency is always committed to helping our military spouses get their licenses and be able to start working in South Carolina as quickly as possible. And we do that by, and have been for a while, making sure first that when we have a process online where they can fill out a form, it goes straight to a designated person at the agency who makes sure that a person on the board reaches out to the applicant, to the potential applicant, and walks them through the process, helps them make sure we are able to pull together the information that the board needs in order to ensure that they've submitted to our jurisdiction in terms of standard of care, discipline, and continuing education. So we always work very quickly with them and kind of one-on-one, putting their applications at the top of the stack, not in the order in which we receive them. I also did want to just note, I think you touched on this, but the interstate compacts, those certainly also have a good impact of easing that licensure process for military and military spouses. Of course, for South Carolina to be a part of any compact that takes legislative action, but South Carolina has done a lot over the last couple of years to enter almost every compact that is currently active. So we are a part of the nursing compact, so that's RNs and LPNs. We're a part of the physical therapy compact, the audiology and speech language pathology compact, the occupational therapy compact, and the psychology compact. There are a few others out there that we have bills pending in the General Assembly for, and that's the counseling for professional counselors, and the social work compact, and the massage therapy compact. But I will note with all three of those, they aren't issuing compact privileges yet. They're very new compacts anyway. Not a lot of states have joined them. The last category I know folks have talked about is cosmetology and barbering. Not aware that there is a compact yet being discussed or formed for barbering. Those are licensed separately in South Carolina. But for cosmetology, that is probably the only compact that we don't have pending legislation at the moment in the General Assembly here. But that is also in its infancy as well in development. So we, as an agency, are always working very hard anytime those compacts get passed to make sure that we get our number from the FBI to run any criminal background checks that are required, change our processes, et cetera, to be able to implement those compacts.
Governor Nissel, I'd say we had a close collaboration between LLR and Veteran Services. I would tell you, we're all victims of the same challenge for multiple assignments for spouses move around. So we understand this issue personally. So I think this is one we recognize that the issue on this one. There are some complexities, I think, between where the federal statute is and where the states are, and we're not the only states governors, but I know we're working really hard, and we'll continue to do that.
Yes, sir.
Because we've been there, understand the challenge. And I don't know, Justin, did you want to comment at all, Red Bank Road at all?
No, I think the Colonel, I appreciate it, Secretary. I think the Colonel kind of summed it up well. I think last year's commander's brief really gave us, and the Governor hosted, I think, a testament to your leadership, sir, is just gave us an opportunity to communicate, coordinate, and collaborate together, because I think we started, I think, a good dialogue of kind of dusting off that easement so that we could get it updated. And I think kind of continue that process and working through Red Bank Road through the regional planning process.
I did want to comment, Colonel Freeman brought up something on the military enhancement fund. I want to thank the Speaker and the legislature for the military enhancement fund. That is a very popular program, and frankly, the goodness that we can do in terms of readiness with military enhancement fund is seen routinely. And frankly, the process is becoming more and more popular. We're receiving more and more grant applications as a result of the success of that process. And we appreciate the opportunity, of course, to support Joint Base Charleston or anywhere else that submits. We've done a couple of those that are in the queue right now and a couple that were just recently approved. And frankly, the way that works, just where the Military Base Task Force, which is represented here, they really do a very good job of working through those grant requests and making a recommendation in terms of how those go based on readiness implications for the bases. So thanks for submitting those. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joint Base Charleston? Hearing none, we'll go to Coast Guard Sector Charleston. We have Captain Frank DelRosso and his right-hand man, Command Master Chief Jeff Solomon. Frank?
Good afternoon, Governor, Mr. Speaker, Secretary McCaffrey, Chairman Beatty, distinguished guests, and fellow military commanders. I'm Captain Frank DelRosso. As mentioned, I'm the commander of Coast Guard Sector Charleston, but Governor, I'm also your captain of the port for Charleston. It is an honor to be here today, and it's also an honor to have Master Chief Solomon with me here today. He just recently reported from Kodiak, loves the state of South Carolina, but on a number of occasions he said, man, it is hot here.
He's right.
But we're lucky to have him. So the Coast Guard considers Charleston, where we have numerous shore commands, and our national security cutters home ported, a strategically important location for basing and operations, sir. I'm going to touch on a couple different things here. The first one is the Coast Guard growth in Charleston. Over the past year, the Coast Guard has awarded over $162 million in infrastructure projects to begin construction of the newly acquired Coast Guard base, Charleston. These investments mark the largest single investment for the Coast Guard or DHS has ever done, and we're very excited to be part of that. We appreciate your continued support with respect to that. Due to this growth, the current Coast Guard personnel will increase, it'll double in less than 5 years, but actually between 5 and 7 years, sorry about that. So we're going to go from 1,100 members to just over 2,500 members in a short amount of time. With that expected growth of military members in the area, it is also critical to continue to examine housing allowances, as well as affordable housing and transportation to what is truly attractive region to the Coast Guard personnel that we have abroad. Charleston DOD leaders have facilitated reviews of basic housing allowance, and we greatly appreciate that. We appreciate their outstanding efforts. But coupled with military child care costs and affordable living for families, there's more work that needs to be done. I applaud the efforts of the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs. When I think of them, I think of collaboration, enthusiastic, and the ability to get to yes. So I thank them for the work that has been done, and I look forward to the work that's going to be done in the future to help us with that. The second item I want to talk about is the Port of Charleston itself, the continued growth. It's at an unprecedented pace. Last year, the South Carolina Port Authority handled nearly 2.8 million 20-foot equivalent units of container volume and supported over 225,000 jobs throughout the state, sir. In addition, 10 private terminals handle the fuel, petrochemical, and bulk aggregate commodities that are critical to the regional manufacturing of this great state. As it relates to military readiness, military and commercial docks within the port complex handle 37 military outlets. These are significantly important to the national security strategy at this time. In addition to that, we have Department of Energy and radioactive responsibilities that we take care of in the port for you, sir. And as you know, Port of Charleston is designated by the Department of Transportation as a strategic port. So, sir, recent events have shown that a fire in the port would be catastrophic. We can look north to New York and Newark, and at that same time those events were going on, there were 25 additional fires on ships going throughout the globe. So it's a serious issue. To that end, we thank the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs Military Enhancement Program, as my colleagues mentioned earlier, for awarding a $247,000 grant for a comprehensive Charleston port salvage and marine firefighting vulnerability study. This is the first of its kind in the country. We're very excited to help facilitate that. I'd like to thank the state, and in particular the North Charleston Fire Department, for their leadership with this, and we look forward to the contract. The contract was already awarded for that. We look forward to the results in January of 2024 and to make the port much safer. But the Port of Charleston and all of our components there, we're not waiting for the results of this analysis. We've already started putting things in place to make the area safe. We formed a couple committees, one of them being a salvage and marine firefighting committee, and they're working collectively to make things safer for our firefighters, for our port operators, and for our first responders, and we're very excited about that. And again, thank you for the support from South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs. We're going to move the needle for safety in the port, and we're very excited about that. So the last thing I'd like to mention is the Coast Guard strength in South Carolina is due to partnerships we have with our federal, state, and local teammates. It goes without saying, none of this can be done alone. Going forward, we'll be focusing on increased investments on rebuilding readiness that will have an impact on current levels of mission activities. We have a group that is a very successful group in Charleston called the Seahawk. They've been around for a number of years. With the build out of the new facility, the footprint's going to change. I can tell you right now, sir, the results are not going to change as far as that group. We may look a little bit different in a couple years, but that collaboration to provide maritime safety and security within the Port of Charleston and our surrounding counties, that will increase. We may not have brick and mortar. It may be a smaller section of what we have right now, but we'll have business rules and MOUs in place to facilitate any type of response that's needed in the Port of Charleston. So, Governor, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the Port of Charleston's growth, the Coast Guard's expansion, and our partnership with South Carolina to ensure the safety and security and environment for the region. Thank you, sir.
You know, one of the topics that will keep coming up, and you'll hear it again, I expect, but we've heard on childcare. I want to ask Director Leach, did you want to make a comment on it, Mike? Because that's been something your department's working on. It's frankly one that affects every one of these commanders.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. You know, I've learned a lot myself throughout this this process, but the military child care in your neighborhood, or the MCCYM program, allowed families to choose child care facilities based off a couple of accreditations, but it limits the access or the availability. And so with the PLUS program, you know, we've heard your concerns. Department of Veteran Affairs has heard your concerns, and Secretary McCaffrey and his team have done a great job working with our team in working towards the PLUS program, where military families will be able to choose off-base child care facilities that are participating in our ABC quality, state's quality rating and improvement system. What that does is it allows more access to more child care settings across state. For example, in Sumter, right, we have 68 regulated or licensed child care facilities. 35 of those are ABC quality facilities, and so that allows access to those additional 35 facilities, and we can do more outreach to get that 35 up to the 68. That would be wonderful. But I know we're in the final stages of the process, and hopefully it'll be completed by this fall of what that looks like. You know, we're going to develop and execute an implementation plan, a comprehensive communication strategy in partnership with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and promote this program, this PLUS program, and ABC quality to our child care providers. It's in their best interest, right, to serve military families. And so we're going to make sure that they understand that, but we're getting really close. The other things that come up around this is with respect to the child care access, even before COVID, we were experiencing a deficit in the number of needed child care providers in South Carolina and across the country. We have child care deserts, and so we continue to work with child care providers, make awareness around that. You know, these providers are working on razor-thin margins. Very little cash reserves. Inflation hasn't helped. The cost of child care is a significant barrier for families. And so we also have staffing shortages within child care. They're making $10 to $11 an hour. There's no health benefits that come with that position. So we're looking at all strategies that help with salaries, some being utilizing some of our ARPA dollars, some of our funding. We've issued approximately $750 million in grants to stabilize this industry. We have about $200 million left of that we have to spend before October of next year. And with that, we'll do wage supplementation and continue to put in dollars to these child care industries so that we can stabilize them and increase the footprint that they have to be able to serve more families across the state. So we appreciate the partnership, and we think this is going to really improve access and expand access.
Go ahead.
See, one thing is certainly we had in the House last year a ad hoc economic development committee, and one of the issues that came forward to us was the lack of availability of childcare, and that being an impediment in our workforce in South Carolina. So President Thomas Alexander of the Senate and I have just named, I think a week or two ago, an ad hoc committee in order to look at ways that we can expand access to childcare. So that is certainly on the radar of the General Assembly right now. We look forward to working with y'all and finding solutions in that regard.
Thanks, Brigadier. I'll speak for our department. We'll certainly engage on that as well with the legislature, and I know we'll team with DSS on this. And I just a side note, so my son and daughter-in-law are in the Army in Texas and had their first child some months ago. And I will tell you, this struggle is real. You all recognize it, and they went for months trying to find good child care for their daughter. So this is a big issue, and it's not here alone in South Carolina, of course. Although I think we're doing a better job of tackling it than we're down where he lives. So. I was going to offer, Chief Jones, did you want to comment on the firefighting study at all in Charleston?
Sure. Since the last commander's brief, I've personally been involved in that Salvage Marine Firefighting Subcommittee, attending all the subcommittee meetings. I worked with the City of North Charleston and Coast Guard with the kickoff meeting for the scope of work for the vulnerability study. And of course, we stand ready to assist in any way that we can as we continue to define the training requirements, the response requirements, all for the potential of a onshore, near shore, and offshore vessel fire.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for the Coast Guard or Charleston writ large? I think we're gonna shift geographic regions here momentarily. Okay.
All right, thank you. We're going to go back to Shaw Air Force Base with Colonel Kris Smith and his command Chief Master Sergeant Kris.
Good afternoon, Governor. Apologize for the tardiness. We spent about an hour admiring the state's project to swap out the bridges on the Garms Ferry. So while we really appreciate how that's going to improve our commute, that ill-timed accident put us a little bit behind. I look forward to its eventual completion. Speaker, appreciate your words about Shaw earlier. I got a chance to go actually visit Irvin Shaw's grave before I took command, and it was humbling to be in that presence, in that place, but then to come to Shaw and Sumter and still see the family and its ties to the community. It was very humbling to be a part of that. Secretary, Chairman, thank you all for having us here. We really appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you in this forum. Commander of the 20th Fighter Wing, I'm also here to introduce you to my newest addition to the command team, Chief Master Sergeant Kris Greist. Shaw's home to the 20th Fighter Wing, which is the premier suppression of enemy air defense wing. We also are home to U.S. Army Central Command, U.S. Air Force Central Command, 15th Air Force Headquarters, and a host of other tenant units. That adds up to over 57,000 folks when you include family members, civilian personnel that make up Team Shaw that we support on a daily basis. And Shaw continues to expand personnel, infrastructure, and equipment, and we have lots of airmen and soldiers to take care of. So with your help, I hope to keep taking care of those folks, keep improving their quality of life, and thereby continuing the successful mission that we have there at Shaw. That said, first I'd like to say thank you to the state and our local representatives who pushed for and advocated for a grant that we recently received to increase our energy resiliency and add a separate line of electricity to one side of the base, which houses our RCENT and AFCENT partners and some of our attack group 24/7 mission, that if they were to lose power, they would lose significant mission, things that we can't accept, and this grant will help us get to that energy resiliency, whether it be natural disaster or otherwise, to keep those missions running at all times. But I'd also like to say thank you to the teams as we have worked for something we talked about last year, which was our South Carolina Electronic Warfare Range project, to get some more airspace to train our pilots across the Department of Defense, whether that be Marine Corps, Air Force, or the National Guard side over at McIntyre, to expand basically the size of our training ground, hundreds of square miles, to make sure that we have a threat representative area to train our pilots. However, some of the things that we talked about last year, I will echo that have come up already, and a couple things still kind of hinder us there at Shaw. Housing, education, and child care being our top three. So I'll hit on housing real quick. The issue we have is finding affordable and available housing. Serving comes with moving, and the services try to offset that inconvenience, but providing services and limited on-base housing. But fluctuations in the local economy, local markets, and limited on-base availability lead to pressure points for our members. Basic allowance for housing, or BAH, provides service members with the intent to cover most of the cost of housing. However, our Shaw servicemen and soldiers continually have to take out-of-pocket costs to cover housing that they need for them and their family. Due to limited housing in Sumter, service members often actually choose to live further away and make the commute, whether that be in Camden or Columbia, where they face increased cost of living there as well. BH has gone up at Shaw. It's a good but not great news story. If you move down the street to our Fort Jackson brothers and sisters, they make on average somewhere between $300 and $400 more just by living a little bit closer to Columbia. But we really appreciate the advocacy from the state as we have continued to try and increase that to parity and then get more housing options for our members. Second I'll hit on is education. The first thing members do when they get orders, generally speaking, if they have a family, is going to go to Google, and they're going to Google great schools, or they're going to Google what school district am I in and how can I best find the essential needs to my child for the best path to success. And we find challenges in that at Shaw. You've mentioned the STEAM charter earlier. As we grow opportunities, I think there will be military families ready to jump on those and improve the quality of the public school system through various interactions that we have, whether that be increasing military family life counselors or increasing communication, and as the board increases its opportunity to try and make the school district a better place for our folks to be. The other thing that as they search for schools, they will try to find the best place, and sometimes that may not be in their best interest to live close to Sumter, so that hinders their ability to integrate into the community locally. And then if they move closer to Columbia or up to Camden, they double down on their quality of life hit from the increase in commute, as well as financial hardships living in a place that's a little bit more expensive with already limited BAH. Lastly, I'll hit on child care. Airmen, soldiers, and families at Shaw need affordable, quality, safe child care. And we've heard this mentioned before. I'm excited to hopefully get the Military Child Care in Your Neighborhood Plus program going. I think that's an opportunity for everyone in the state to really look for how can we ease the burden of the on-base child development centers and then be able to disperse that throughout the community. One, helping them with those folks that have businesses and small businesses and want to start them, but two, our child care options are also limited on base depending on the age of the child. Because child care can account for roughly a quarter of our household incomes for our force, and it continues to grow every year. Some households have dual military parents that requires them to have child care to make sure that they can serve. And we need to make sure that they have that opportunity that's close at home and is affordable and that is safe for our children. So, sir, thank you for the opportunity in the forum today for supporting our members and their families. We look forward to continuing this partnership and working with you year over year. Thank you very much.
Governor, I was going to ask Superintendent Weaver if you want to comment on the education piece, because I know that's a topic you've been working on closely, and it's obviously one that's not just isolated to around Sumter, but one that you can look at statewide.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I'm almost 9 months into my service as State Superintendent of Education. We have a long way to go and a short time to get there. As the philosopher once said, I've provided each of you with a copy of a strategic plan that my executive team put together. And the first thing I want to call your attention to is that the first sentence says every child college, career, or military ready. That military ready has been added since my time in service, because I believe that the expectation you articulate is directly related to the outcome that you receive. And so we are a proudly pro-military and pro-veteran state, and I want everyone in our K-12 education system to know that a career in the military is a wonderful pathway to service and success in life. As I mentioned earlier, I've certainly seen that in my own family. The governor and the speaker have already touched briefly on the efforts that we have undergoing here in South Carolina to build what I call the education ecosystem of the future. If we have any fellow Johnny Cash fans in the audience, I think of his song, "I Built It One Piece at a Time," and I think sometimes that's kind of how our education system has grown up over time. So we've got the 4950, 5152, on and on and on, automobile, and there are layers and budgets and programs that have grown up over time that just don't really make sense anymore, even if they did at one time. And so I think expanding access to education options is something that I am an unequivocal and unapologetic supporter for. So whether that be options for private school choice, like the General Assembly passed this year with the Education Scholarship Account, something that we see growing not just here in South Carolina, but across the country, incredible charter schools like Liberty STEAM, those are things that we have to do even as we work to improve the quality of education for all of our students in our traditional public education system. And as we think about that improvement, I have been in schools recently. We have our state report cards that are going to be coming out this coming week. And, you know, we have to be honest. I tell our school leaders and our superintendents all the time that data is a tool, it's not a weapon. We have to be able to pinpoint where we are on the map if we are going to get to where we need to go. And the fact is that we're struggling in South Carolina. That's no secret to any of you. We have about 54% of our children who are on grade level in ELA, 41% of our children who are on grade level in math. The good news is the trends are moving in the right direction. And in these schools that I have been privileged to visit within the last week, the three secrets that I see to success are just like with anything in life, high caliber leadership. The principal in that building matters, and that is something that we are intensely focused on at the Department of Education. How are we going to grow our principal pipeline? Because that's how you build a culture in a school and recruit and retain great teachers. We have to have high quality instructional materials, and that is something that the General Assembly continues to invest in, and we're very grateful for that. But then thirdly, we have to have high quality professional development, investing in our teachers, because a great teacher in that classroom is the #1 determinant of whether or not that student is going to learn. And so one of the things that I really wanted to raise to you all today was the drive that we are doing around the foundational skill of literacy. That is how we are going to turn academic outcomes in South Carolina around, is by giving every child the ability and the tools that they need to read. And again, the General Assembly has been incredibly gracious and generous in supporting this initiative. We are currently working to train every K-3 teacher in South Carolina in the science of reading, which is something that we have seen dramatically improve education outcomes in states like Florida, even in Mississippi. We can't say thank goodness for Mississippi anymore, because they're now beating the national average in terms of growth in their reading scores in elementary. And so we're going to continue to push that forward here. Of course, we know that to support the academic challenges and needs that our students have, we have to ensure that they have the grit and resilience that it takes to be a successful student and a successful citizen ultimately when they leave our schools. And so we currently are looking to stand up a program that we call CARE, which is Character and Resilience Education. One component of CARE is going to be the Medal of Honor curriculum. Many people don't realize that the Medal of Honor Museum is right here on the Yorktown in South Carolina. And so we are very proud to be able to showcase that curriculum and talk about the 6 core values that that program teaches that are unifying ideas that each of us as Americans believe in. The last thing that I'll say is that I would invite all of you to come to our Military Honor Cord ceremony. I am so thankful that we had Command Sergeant Major Oaks and you, General McCaffrey, there to inspire and to charge our students at our last one this year. But again, this is a way that we can really celebrate the students who are choosing to pursue a military pathway post-graduation in some way, shape, or form. And so that will be on May 14th, 11 a.m. at the Coger Center, and I'm proud to say that we have secured South Carolina's very own General Beagle, or Beegs, I guess as he is called to those who know him, to be our guest speaker. So again, would welcome your participation in any of that. I look forward to being at Fort Jackson soon for a graduation, and look forward to the opportunity to meet the rest of you who I've not yet had a chance to meet. Thank you.
And Ellen mentioned Johnny Cash, who sings very well, but if you want to hear a little different kind of singing, come by the First Presbyterian Church on Marion Street on Sunday, and you'll see Ellen Weaver singing on the front row of the choir.
Governor, the other thing that came, thank you for that, Superintendent. The other thing that came that Colonel Smith raised, I think is important, probably affects all of our bases, as well as this issue of power and resilience that you raised up. So I want to provide Secretary Lightsey and Mr. Duncan an opportunity to comment if you want to, because I know there's work being done in both of those areas. Because, you know, obviously our bases are in many cases, are slave to the grid, and resilience of the grid as it relates, what I'm sure we'll hear about it from Fort Gordon as well, the threats to the grid and the resilience that comes from that is something that's key to readiness in each one of our bases. So, Secretary, I don't know if you want to make a comment or not, or Mr. Duncan, you as well.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, and Governor and Mr. Speaker, thank y'all for the opportunity to be here. Commanders, it's an honor to be in your presence. First of all, I'd like to recognize Deputy Secretary Ashley Teasdale, who joins me here representing the Department of Commerce. She is indeed the best part of our leadership. So,
raise your hand, please, Ashley. Thank you.
So there are two really important efforts I'd like to point out that we have underway. And first, under the governor's leadership, we had an energy summit earlier this year, and the governor issued an executive order which established an organization called Power SC, which is convened to address South Carolina's energy resources and infrastructure for long-term resiliency and to create solutions that power both our communities and industries so that we can remain strong and competitive in the future. Of course, that includes our military bases as well. We look forward to working with you on your power resiliency needs through that Power SC initiative. The second one is an effort that was completed, or actually started in August of this year. The South Carolina Department of Commerce led a coalition that filed an application under the CHIPS Act and with the federal government in Washington, D.C. The coalition is called the Nexus for Advanced Resilient Energy, or South Carolina Nexus. It's a public-private consortium made up of more than 35 members working to build a recognized and designated tech hub in South Carolina that will give the University of South Carolina and the Savannah River Nuclear Lab in Clemson, South Carolina State, all of our HBCUs, along with our private companies, an opportunity to take South Carolina to the next level. It will be an opportunity to fully maximize the asset our state has in the Savannah River National Lab. We know this is not an asset every state can boast of having. The Savannah River National Lab is a perfect testing ground for our research universities and our companies to look at develop new products and to bring new technologies to the market space in advanced energy. So, thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Governor.
All right, we'll go ahead and move from Shaw Air Force Base to Paris Island. Colonel Derek Roberson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Governor McMaster, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Speaker, generals, commanders, senior enlisted leaders, distinguished guests. I'm Derek Roberson, representing General Field. He can't make it today to Paris Island, and really appreciate you having us here today. Give me a chance to talk about the success that we've had at Paris Island this last year, and really thanks to a lot of people that's sitting here, and I'll hit that here in a moment. But now, since 1915, Marine Corps' premier recruit training center has been at Paris Island, and you know, for the next 100 years, we anticipated being there, mainly because of this forum and support that we're seeing from South Carolina. And I'll hit some of that real quickly here. In three lanes, I'll hit medical care, infrastructure, and then environment. Starting off with medical care, we go through about 17,000 graduate recruits a year, which is pretty good. We made mission, the Marine Corps made mission this year, and we could not have done it. You know, it's a challenging environment. It'd be more challenging without partners that's sitting around this table, and we did it because you all here, a lot part of that, I will say. And so, specifically with medical care, you know, we have 7,000 recruits on hand right now, 13 companies, over 500 recruits per company going through. Over 1,000 patient encounters a day from our medical staff, and some of y'all maybe appreciate that. They don't have that at Bethesda, okay? That's a lot of patient encounters. And it's mainly due to our support that we get from the Naval Hospital that we were successful, but also from local and state medical care. We could not, meet our mission. The Marine Corps could not meet its mission without that support. So I want to say thank you. As the defense health system continues to change, and we're going to see it, we've seen it in the last 10 years, we're going to see it over the next 10 years, there's going to be more changes. But I can say without a doubt that we have local and state support because we've seen it. And as we go forward, we look forward to working together about how we continue to meet mission, the Marine Corps' mission as we go forward. So thank you. Second part, infrastructure investment. As last year, we've executed over $200 million on-base investment. Some of it's just been, relatively simple items like raising the causeways to survive floods. The low country, that's a pretty big deal, especially when you have one causeway coming in and off base. But that's one of them. Other ones have been barracks or road challenges. As we go forward, we're going to see more stuff like headquarters improvements and stuff. I say that to say that there's a lot of investment coming into Love County, and it's going to continue to come because Parris Island is staying, and you're going to see more and more investment coming in the area, which is good both for us, on Parris Island, but also the local community. Lastly, I'm going to kind of hit on this, and there's a lot of acronyms, so I'm going to make sure I get these right, is the environmental side. I think as we look at in addressing environmental encroachment on local, regional, and state level, this fiscal year 23, we worked in collaboration and encroachment partners to secure $1.2 million for local manufactured wire reef project, applied for a readiness environmental protection integration, a REPI program, and established a Low County Sentinel landscape. We continued to coordinate with 5 other states in the Southeast Regional Partnership for Planning and Sustainability and support the South Atlantic Salt Marsh Initiative. These partnerships have allowed us to utilize federal funds for projects inside and outside the fence, addressing the conservation and resilience of approximately 2.2 million acres. Most importantly, and recently, we applied for the South Carolina Department of VA grant in collaboration with local government, state natural resources, university, and nonprofit entities to install a living shoreline and smart reef system, provide habitat restoration, improve water quality, and provide much needed data to make regional resilience decisions. And this week, we've been informed that we received that grant, $5.4 million. Thank you. Thank you, Governor, Mr. Secretary, Major General Milliken, Colonel Puglisi, I believe he's here, Ben, from Office of Resiliency, Veteran Affairs, and the South Carolina 7, much appreciated. Without that, with that support this last year, we received the Secretary of Navy's Environmental Restoration Award and South Carolina's Environmental Leadership Award. So I think that's a great success that we've seen. Appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Questions? Colonel, thanks for that. That's what you heard now a couple times. The military enhancement funds, another example of that. That's where for the legislature appropriating those dollars has been very helpful and continues to be popular and has impacts on our basis. So thanks for laying that out. We appreciate the work you're doing with the Office of Resilience and others, and look forward to continue to see continued improvements done at the Marine Corps base.
All righty, we'll move on to MCAS Beaufort, Lieutenant Colonel Rob Steinhauser, and Sergeant Major Brian Alfaro.
Thank you. Governor McMaster, Speaker House Smith, Secretary McCaffrey, Chairman Beatty, distinguished guests, commanders, senior leaders, good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Robert Steinhauser, Executive Officer of Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort. Thank you for having us today. The Commanding Officer, Colonel Mark Boardman, really wish he could have been here today, sends his regrets, and asked me to pass along his thanks for this important forum. Today I'd like to share some of the achievements from the past year that we've accomplished due to the state of South Carolina's unwavering commitment to the military, as well as some of the challenges the Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort continues to face and works to overcome as we grow our mutually beneficial relationship. First, though, as you see in the news, one of our squadrons recently, based at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort, recently suffered an aviation mishap here in South Carolina. Fortunately, the pilot did not sustain any life-threatening injuries, and no one in the community was physically hurt. Events such as these serve as a stark reminder of the inherent danger of military training and that our pilots and service members face daily during operations. The recovery and restoration efforts to date have been a resounding success. And out of such an unfortunate event, a good news story of our interagency cooperation emerged. I'd like to publicly thank all the state, local leaders, and the agencies involved for all their efforts, coordination, and cooperation during what was a highly complex recovery and restoration operation. However, interagency coordination, as seen during this mishap, doesn't just occur during emergencies in South Carolina. It's the foundation upon which we build our relationship with the state of South Carolina. For example, as you're probably aware, the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs awarded a grant from the South Carolina Military Base Enhancement Fund for the extension of the Spanish Moss Trail from the Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort Main Gate all the way to our housing complex in Laurel Bay Military Housing. That engineering is complete, the permits have been received, and they're getting ready to go out for bid. This project is going to directly enhance the safety and quality of life for service members, family, and our local community as community members. We're excited to get this project across the finish line and look forward to seeing shovels in the ground shortly. Thank you to the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs for awarding this grant, and thank you, sir, for the Military Base Enhancement Fund. As we speak to the needs of our community and celebrate our successes, we want to ensure that you are continuing to protect our hard investments. We are working diligently to ensure our installation is resilient in the face of external encroachment pressures and impacts. Our encroachment partnering program is a valuable tool in addressing encroachment challenges such as developmental pressures and resiliency, as well as preserving the low country for future generations. In July of 2023, Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort and the Beaufort County Open Land Trust closed on our latest conservation effort, easement, Bowers Farm, which added 488 acres to the thousands of protected acres within the Ace Basin and to the thousands of protected acres within our military mission footprint. A portion of the funding to acquire this easement came from the South Carolina State Conservation Bank, and we are grateful for this continued support to our partners and protection of our mission. We look forward to what we can do in the future. Additionally, in years past, we have discussed the development and potential designation of a low-country sentinel landscape. In March of this year, Office of the Secretary of Defense officially designated the low-country sentinel landscape. This partnership provides an avenue for us to engage with organizations across South Carolina and optimize and expand our resources. It also offers an opportunity where participation by the state of South Carolina can help facilitate defense, agriculture, and conservation communities working together to empower private landowners towards a common goal. We hope to have your continued support and continued involvement as we kick off this partnership and in the projects that will follow in support of these goals. Ultimately, ensuring the sound of freedom is here to stay in the low country. Lastly, I'd like to thank the state of South Carolina for their assistance in addressing a significant traffic safety concern, which occurs outside of our main gate. We're diligently working with the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs and South Carolina Department of Transportation to determine what is within the art of possible for resolving this safety matter and ensuring we continue to accomplish our national security mission and protect this great nation. Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort is proud to host the largest number of advanced fighter jets in the Marine Corps, and we sincerely appreciate your commitment to our mission, the Marines, sailors, families that call the Low Country home. We look forward to future opportunities for collaboration, and as always, invite you all to come visit and see the fruits of our partnership. Thank you for your time today and allowing me the opportunity to speak, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Justin, do you want to make any comments on that? I know you've been working closely with the Marine Corps Air Station.
Certainly, Secretary. No, I had an excellent conversation with the commander this morning. I think we both have a little bit of homework on both sides here, and hopefully we'll be able to report some progress on that in the future.
Yeah, thanks. This is a good example of collaboration between one of our military bases and a couple departments of the state government to resolve an issue that's tied to readiness and safety on the base. So it's an ongoing discussion. So thanks for raising that issue.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks, Rob. With that, we'll move to the Beaufort Naval Hospital. Captain Chad Rowe, commander of that, and Command Master Chief David Matthews. Chad?
Oh, I appreciate the offer to come down here today and the opportunity to speak. First of all, good afternoon, Governor McMaster, Secretary McCaffrey, Secretary, Speaker Smith, and Chairman Beatty, generals, esteemed leaders and commanders around here. I'm Captain Chad Rowe, commanding officer of the Naval Support Facility as well as the hospital in Beaufort. I exist here to support the Marine Corps, really as they make Marines and keep those jets in the air and have them deployable ready at any given time. But we're glad to be part of this team here today, and I wanted to kind of recap a little bit from last year, success from what your team was able to do, and help with this allowing some of our beneficiaries, our spouses and families, coming in with a request for medical forms that were done by the DOD to be accepted by the state of South Carolina. That was a helpful ease transition for people coming here versus getting struggled as they come for a new move, as we call a personnel change duty station. So that worked out well. But we really are here focusing on the quality health care, and that plays a vital role in maintaining that mission as we support our Marine brethren here on the left of me and our active duty forces on the everyday dedicated staff, the hospital, as well as the clinics at both Paris Island and the Marine Corps Air Station there in Beaufort. We provide that high-quality health care that empowers our warfighters to successfully accomplish their missions. Our health care service directly contributes to the Marines' goal of creating that goal every year of 17,000 plus and allowing us 2,000 plus Marines to be deployable ready in an instance. Additionally, by providing excellent health care to the family members of our service members and women, we are enabled to allow our warfighters to focus on their duties, regardless of their location, because these young women and men go around the world and they want to make sure that their family members are taken care of back in the low country of Beaufort. And I stand today with asking basically one request. It's a federal waiver. One of the waivers right now is really in the pharmacy compounding. That's a new regulation that's coming online. And what I'm specifically asking for is for the state endorsement with our request going up to the federal level to be able to look at some changes that's going to change throughout the industry within the medical field. Specifically what it does, it's not a huge waiver, but due to our location, our volume is low in comparison to larger locations where this might be more reasonable to be in effect. It would allow the local community, where we work closely with the local community's hospital, it's Beaufort Memorial Hospital, and they have a very collaborative method, and they're willing to work with us as well, but they say we have to have a waiver in order to do this. So the request that I am asking is that we can have this looked at the state level so that our package going to the federal level would be an endorsable process. And it's really a compounding aspect that they're trying to allow for more safety issues within the medical field or the pharmaceutical field of the world. That collaboration would basically be a cost savings of beneficiaries and a more usefulness of the resources that we have limited abilities within our budgets. Governor, it's been an honor to visit with you guys. You have a great team. It seems like Mrs. Sandy Claypool, she's like a train conductor. She's back there just hooking up trains and sending things to do. So you got a great team, and this is not just fruition. Every time I have a request, someone acts on it. Good, bad, or indifferent, it works, and I think they give us the right answer. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I have an awesome opportunity. Master Chief and I love the Low Country, love supporting what we do, and coming down here and being part of a very collaborative state, local, and county relationships. So with that, I just want to kind of close out and say, continue to strive for excellence and enhancing our lives and for the beloved ones that we are able to serve, and thereby bolstering the relentlessness of our armed forces and safeguarding our remarkable nation. Thank you, sir.
And I think we're in coordination with LLR on the issue with the Beaufort Hospital. I believe that's ongoing.
Correct. This would really be within the Board of Pharmacy's purview, but I understand that they've already reached out to you all and to Beaufort Memorial as well to come before the board and explain the request and what this looks like. So we have that in process for their next board meeting in November.
Yeah, I think the team has been very responsive. Our chief medical officer is working in hand with the respective people that they've kind of connected the trains up with to get the information in order to make that request happen. So thank you.
And
General Patton once said that if you sit 20 minutes, all your brains go to your feet. I think he's probably right. So, Mr. Secretary, if you permit, why don't we have a 3-minute stretch break?
Certainly, sir, absolutely. Far be it from
3-minute break, stretch, please.
Take it off, Dave.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All these issues are pretty big. Not the last time after the 29th. Everyone's got part.
Nobody ever finishes early.
All right, with that, we'll go ahead and transition to our friends across the border, Major General Paul Stanton and his sidekick, Mr. Sean Barnes.
Fort Gordon, South Carolina.
So Governor, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, I'm fired up to be here. Anytime I get to cross the river is a good day. I normally do it on Saturday mornings when I run across the bridge from Augusta into North Augusta. I didn't even have to break a sweat today, so I'm fired up and at ease. I appreciate the fact that my brain is no longer in my feet. I'm not sure how far it made it, but I'll do my best. So I'm the commanding general of a United States cyber power projection platform that is Fort Gordon. We execute cyber missions on Fort Gordon 24/7, 365 days a year in our nation's defense. We defend against active cyber attacks, and we also execute offensive cyber missions from Fort Gordon. It is the home of Army Cyber Command. It is also the home of the National Security Agency's Cryptologic Center that is in support of the CENTCOM area of responsibility. There are 32,000 employees on Fort Gordon, and it has grown by 10,000 over the last 7 years. There are $2.6 billion worth of construction currently invested by the Department of Defense into what will soon become Fort Eisenhower. That construction comes in the form of Operations Center, comes in the form of a new campus for educating and training our cyber electronic warfare and signal soldiers. It comes in the form of quality of life initiatives and the renovation of our barracks, new housing initiatives, child care development centers on the installation. Importantly, approximately 20% of our population commutes from South Carolina. Aiken and North Augusta are growing populations for the community that works and thrives on Fort Gordon. Courtesy of South Carolina legislation, that number is growing. An increasing number of our, I'll call them seasoned individuals within the formation, are buying their homes over in Aiken. You should see some of the neighborhoods that are springing up there. It's pretty fantastic to see. With that in mind, I would be hugely encouraged to see the proviso for Military Enhancement Fund make its way through the legislature this year. I know we had a good run last year. It would be fantastic if we make it all the way across the finish line because there are a lot of military families that would absolutely benefit from that passing on the other side of the river. Governor, I don't have any direct requests, but I do have a request for continued advocacy and collaboration on two fronts. The first of which is on an educational front. We at Fort Gordon have technical expertise and a propensity for volunteerism. That combination we're leveraging with Columbia County Schools in Georgia to develop what we call the Next Gen Cyber K-12 curriculum. This is building a cyber citizen. Not necessarily a computer scientist, not a nation-state hacker, but someone that is familiar with and understands how to use the device that they carry around in their pocket in a meaningful and responsible way. We brought technical expertise over to those that developed the curriculum. Those that developed the curriculum have now built it into a K-12 prototype, and we're executing it this year across a kindergarten, middle school, and high school cluster in Columbia County. That's great, but it's not good enough. What we are very encouraged by is your career readiness and pathway to jobs that you've instituted in South Carolina. We step back and we look at two pieces to a puzzle that need to be put together into a picture. If we take this concept of improving the curriculum for K-12, and then we look at a very viable and realistic pathway into a career, that just makes logical sense. In the intermediate step, we're already doing heavy partnership with a lot of sponsorship coming out of North Augusta towards our Cyber Patriot program. These are kids that participate in capture the flag events and force-on-force cyber events, and in the process, truly enhance their educational value in terms of understanding cyber. You put that in the middle, and you have middle school and high school age kids that are studying cyber expertise, and you create this very logical pathway to what the career is at the far end. I had the honor of speaking at the Gulf Coast Cyber Summit, where there was a huge focus on creating jobs. We can do that, and we can do that in North Augusta. We can do it in Aiken, where we can take our cyber expertise and grow it. My second area to look for continued advocacy and collaboration is in the evolving electronic warfare range capability that is similar to but different from suppression of enemy air defense requirements from our Air Force brethren. Specifically, we're looking at Savannah River National Labs, and what does it mean to put boots on the ground with soldiers carrying man-pack capabilities to be able to turn those systems on and validate that they work at ranges and distances and against signals of interest that we think are relevant. Savannah River owns the space, and importantly, they own the altitude. So it's custom made to go over and turn on one of our systems. But we're working with General Jones, Major General Retired Owens, with the senior leadership at the National Lab to evolve this into something that is repeatable, enduring, and would absolutely benefit the formation on soon-to-be Fort Eisenhower. And Governor, that brings me to my invite. 27 October is our renaming ceremony. We will change our name from Fort Gordon to Fort Eisenhower. It's going to be a fantastic event. The Secretary of the Army, the Chief of Staff of the Army, and General Brito, the Training and Doctrine Command Commander, will all be in attendance. But most importantly, General Eisenhower's two grandchildren, Susan and Mary, will be in attendance. And I know that there are members of the administration that have already RSVP'd that they'll be there, and I'm excited to have them as our guests. Sir, subject to your questions and thoughts. Over.
I do have one question. I remember a few years ago, we were talking about the road leading from South Carolina into one of the northern gates, I thought. What's happened with that?
Yes, sir. So we're moving. We're just not moving at a pace that is satisfying to a former infantryman. We're inside the Georgia process. We have Columbia County, which is the county that owns that portion of the roadway, has seeded the initial money to do the environmental survey, which is the first step. I'll profess my ignorance in all the details about what it means to build a road, but they're doing the environmental study at this point. What would also be beneficial is continued recognition. We're going to go after significant federal funding in order to support that initiative. And so in discussions with the South Carolina representatives in the National House and Senate, that would be helpful because we will try to tackle some of those federal funds.
Okay, excellent.
And Governor, General Stanton mentioned the proviso, just so that made it to the House last year, Mr. Speaker, and I think it just ran out of daylight and altitude getting through the Senate, and I'm sure it'll come up this next session. So we're tracking it very closely. That would, if passed, would allow us to designate Fort Gordon as a South Carolina federal installation, which will allow access in Aiken and Edgefield counties to Military Enhancement Fund grants, similar to what we have for the other counties that are eligible for those based on the proviso. So we're optimistic that's going to get through. We're sure we'll keep pushing it.
Yes, sir.
So, any other questions for General Stanton? Good news is you have staffers from the federal delegation here, so you should be covered with that now. So, and lastly, sir, we have the Adjutant General for South Carolina. Man certainly needs no recognition. Major General Van McCarty and Chief Master Sergeant Camille Caldwell.
Good afternoon, Governor, Mr. Speaker, Secretary McCaffrey, Chairman Beatty, our fellow commanders, state officials, and other guests. On behalf of the employees of the Military Department of South Carolina and the soldiers and airmen of the South Carolina National Guard, I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. In addition to Chief Caldwell, I have also with me today Colonel Michael Ferraro, call sign Vito. He's the commander of the 169th Fighter Wing, and Mr. Phil Hamby, our Legislative and Governmental Affairs Director. Governor, your National Guard is fully mission capable and busy. In our current deployment cycle, we have over 2,400 of our soldiers and airmen who have been deployed both either stateside and overseas. On the Army side of the house, We have over 9,300 soldiers in our ranks today, giving us a 101% fill rate, which makes us one of 15 states who are considered green out of the 54 states, territories in the District of Columbia. So congratulations to our force for making that successful. On our Air Guard side, we have a force of a little over 1,400 airmen, giving them a strength of 104, and we just sent out the door about over 130 of our airmen on a deployment overseas this week. We continue to assess our force structure and our armories to ensure that we're strategically and geographically located to support both our federal and state missions and to ensure that we have a force that is recruitable and sustainable in the future. We are a community-based organization, but we have seen a shift in our recruitable population from our urban areas to our from our rural areas to our more urban population centers. We are currently working with National Guard Bureau to update a study that was done in 2014, the Readiness Center Transformational Master Plan, that was completed by an independent architectural design firm, and we will use this study to help in our assessment. Bottom line, we want to make sure that we are where we need to be in the future to ensure that we can meet our missions and that we can support a recruitable base and retaining of our soldiers throughout the state. Governor, due to your support and that of the General Assembly, we have made great progress in revitalizing many of our armories. We have 6 that have been currently renovated. We have 2 that are currently in construction and 2 that are in design and 12 more that are in the planning stage. We are thankful to have the support also of the General Assembly and the Governor for our female latrines. It's difficult to say, but back when most of our armories were built in the 50s and the 70s, we did not have many females in our ranks. Today, we're fortunate to have a large portion of our soldiers females, but we did not have the facilities for them. But we have completed now 11 additions to our armories to accommodate them. 3 are currently in construction, 1 in design, and we have 11 more that are in the CPIP ready to be addressed. As we look to our federal military construction, we're working with Joint Base Charleston. We will develop there a facility that will be strategically located to support our hurricane response and also will help serve as a mobilization manpower projection platform. We're currently working with National Guard Bureau to finalize the funding there, and we appreciate the General Assembly putting the matching funds to that this past year. On our Army Readiness Center at USC Aiken, it will be strategically located on property of USC Aiken, located near Fort Gordon, soon to be Fort Eisenhower, which is the Army Cyber Center of Excellence. That will allow us to enhance our cyber mission and skill set capabilities and also help us to recruit and retain our cyber warriors. That project is currently in the design phase. We have over $30 million of new construction that will be done at McIntyre. Fortunately for the state, since McIntyre is a fully federally funded facility, that's all federal dollars for a new taxiway, a hazardous cargo pad, and an F-16 flight simulation building, which will be compatible for F-35. More to come on that. Based on a nationwide backlog, though, of military construction projects, due to a combination of issues throughout the 54 and just due to the cost of construction now, we don't anticipate another military construction project outside the ones I've already identified until 2030. However, though, we just recently have been signed and are working to finalize an agreement with Horry County for 25 acres that in the future would serve as a readiness center in that location of the state. On the state side of the house in our military construction, we're thankful for the General Assembly funding the USC Aiken Cyber Center. It is going to be there strategically located close to Fort Gordon and also to the Savannah River National Laboratory. That will allow us to, again, enhance our cyber capabilities and will also serve as a spur to economic growth. We're confident that we have tremendous opportunities there. Also, sir, you're tracking the renovation of the Olympia Army, the headquarters of our State Guard. It's moving well. The actual work on the sewer issues that we've had is will start this week. We're in the design phase now, and we anticipate groundbreaking of the new facility in May of 2024. We continue to work with state and local partners to address the encroachment issues that we have at Joint Base McIntyre and to posture the base for enhanced mission capabilities and the next generation fighter to replace our aging F-16s, whether it's F-35 or a future fighter there. Sir, as I close, I'd like to reiterate a couple of points. Our responsibility to ensure that your National Guard is ready to meet its federal and state missions. As we routinely say, it's man, train, and equip the force. I did note, though, that we are green, and that is a positive sign, but I do also want to indicate or say that recruiting now is a challenge. It's a challenge not only here in the state, but nationwide to much of the force. And as identified by General Kelly, we are recipients of the Future Army Prep Program. We have soldiers now that are going through that, and we're thankful for that opportunity to send our future soldiers there. And we must continue to address all the tools that are available for us to recruit and retain the best of our soldiers. We must also continue to partner and leverage to maximize the funds that we have through the college assistance programs to ensure that our soldiers and airmen have the opportunity to attend college and have that paid for in great part by funds from the college assistance program. We'd like to also look at opportunities to expand that to graduate level degrees, continuing and professional education credits, and to advanced certificate programs. In today's Army and today's military and Air Force, it's not just enough to have a high school diploma or a bachelor's degree. If you're going to successfully compete for promotional opportunities, you've got to have advanced degrees, and certainly we want to make sure our force is prepared for that. We must continue, though, to ensure that our soldiers and airmen, and I would extend this to their families, are employed in career track jobs that give them an opportunity to provide for their families and to take advantage of their skill sets and their work ethic. Had the opportunity this morning to meet with Ms. Becky Porter with the Military Child Education Coalition. Had a great sit-down meeting there. Our guardsmen and our reservists in the state of South Carolina face some unique challenges when they're deployed or when their loved ones are. Unlike maybe some of the military installations that we have represented here today, I have soldiers that live in 46 counties and neighboring states of Georgia, North Carolina, and beyond. So we have some challenges there as it relates to our children in the schools. In many cases, the schools don't even recognize that they have children who are dependents of military members. So we look to expand that Purple Star access throughout the state. Some of the same challenges that I've heard from the education standpoint, child care, we have that in the Guard. I just have it in 46 different counties. Last, I'd like to say, and I like to advocate for them, as always, we want to recognize the excellent work that our Youth and Job Challenge program does. It affects the lives of young people in a meaningful way every day, and we appreciate the state matching those federal dollars out of NGB to help us with that. I will just take 1 second. I know Ms. Jennifer Harding is here today. Our employer support of the Guard and Reserve is critical to the Guard and Reserve here in South Carolina. We need our employers to recognize the service of their employees that serve also in the Guard and Reserve. Unfortunately, we're seeing some cuts in that program on the federal level, so we may be looking from the state level to help advocate for the continued funding of the ESGR program. So, subject to your questions, that's all I have for my brief today, and again, thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you. I would add one caveat. Van mentioned about trying to get female latrines in some of the buildings. This is also less of the fact the fastest growing demographic in veterans in South Carolina is our female veterans, and that's across all our services. So I appreciate you highlighting that, because that's going to, what he's seeing coming to the pipeline and you're all seeing coming to your formations, comes out the back end as veterans here in South Carolina. We're excited about that as well. So appreciate that, Van.
Secretary McCaffrey, I skipped over Mr. Ben Duncan from Resiliency Office. We had several different installations that had environmental issues. Ben, did you want to say anything about that?
Thank you, Dan. The Office of Resilience has many functions. One is conservation. We were lucky with the governor that we have and the speaker that we have to be able to receive $200 million for conservation efforts. And that is to look at military installations to maintain the natural barriers around it. And you talked about encroachment. That's what we're identifying, those natural areas. From my understanding, it was a struggle with the governor and the speaker. They had to arm wrestle a few legislative guys, but they won. And I want to thank them for that. We all need to thank them for that. Military installations and our citizens to help protect this natural state that we have. It helps with flooding. It helps with hurricanes when there's flooding, and it reduces those areas. When we talk about our wetlands, we need to preserve our wetlands for that purpose. We also have worked with Surpass in helping protect those natural areas. We are working with a NOAA grant for a living shoreline, and we're working with the Colonel here with that protection of our natural shorelines. I think we are also seeking a $200 million grant in other areas to help protect our natural areas. So we are working constantly on a daily basis to protect South Carolina and its natural state that it is now, and protecting against our flooding efforts.
Thank you. So, sir, I think we've kind of cycled through everything. We are just about toward the end of our time, but I certainly wanted to provide the speaker and the governor opportunity to ask any questions or make any comments that you wanted to do, and then we'll begin to close this out.
Thank you, Secretary. I appreciate it. And again, thank you for including me in this, and Governor, honored to sit with you in this forum. Let me just say this has been tremendously helpful for me. I've learned two things today. And first is I see the fruits of our labors in the legislature with passing legislation and creating military enhancement funds and other areas that you all have advocated over the years. It's nice to come and hear that that's beneficial to you and to your readiness and to your ability to operate and provide a quality of life to your military members and their families. So it is very good for me to hear this. Secondly, I have taken great notes today. I hear what you all have raised and their legitimate concerns, and I look forward to working with you in the General Assembly to make sure that some of these issues are addressed promptly, and when we get back in session, I assure you we'll start working on them. I want to recognize, I know two people at least I see out here, and first, Celeste Davis. Celeste, if you'll stand up. She is the chairwoman of the, I always get it right, I call it the 3M committee, so you're going to put me under the gun. I believe it's the Medical, Military, and Municipal Affairs Committee. Did I get the right sequence? I did. Okay, I'm learning something as speaker over here. That's good news. But she is the chairwoman. This is where all your legislative issues generally go through, and she has been a great military advocate. She's down in Berkeley County, so very familiar with the Low Country and the needs down there. Second is our military caucus chairman, Doug Gillum. Dougie, did you leave? There you are. And Doug Gillum, he walked up here and told me he's taking copious notes, so I'm not real good at that. Doug is excellent at it. He's a member of still National Guard member and a great advocate for the military and leads our joint House Senate military caucus, so he's doing a great job. Lastly, I'll say this is I appreciate your service. I appreciate your contributions to our great state. One thing I've learned through Shaw is a few years ago, maybe about 10, 12 years ago, is the concept of challenge coins. So I gave each of you a challenge coin today. When I first got elected speaker, that was one of the first things I did was order and create my own challenge coin. And I tell you, I've learned from the governor, you go into some politicians' offices and their offices are filled with pictures and awards and you can't even see the walls. If you come into my office, there's only a few things I have in my office hung on the walls, and those are things that are dear and important to me. Pictures of Sumter, South Carolina, some awards that I really value, and then my military challenge coin collection. So I would be honored if you ever have the opportunity to give me one of your military challenge coins. It will hang with pride in the Speaker's office in South Carolina. And I understand for ethics acts, I have to give it back to the state after it's over with. But thank you for being here, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this process today.
All right, thank you, Speaker. Governor.
Yes, add my thanks to all of you. I know I've learned a lot, and I think probably everybody else has as well. This is a perfect example. If you communicate, collaborate, and cooperate, you can get things done. We got a lot of talent in this state. Some of it's here for the duration, some goes in and goes out. But as long as we work together and think together in forums like this and others, we can make great progress not only for our state, but also for the country and its readiness and its strength. So I thank all of you for being here, and I look forward to the next time. And again, just pick up the phone and call. You don't need an appointment. It takes too long. Just pick up the phone and call. And if we need to talk face to face, we'll do that. Ain't that right?
That's correct.
See that?
We're a handshake state, Governor, as you say.
You know where that came from? I first heard it when the chairman of BMW, a few years ago, they were having their 25th anniversary up in Spartanburg. And as you know, they came in 1992, 93, and that is their biggest plant in the world, the most successful plant in the world, and they produce somewhere between 425 and 450 BMWs a year. That's one every minute and a few seconds. I mean, it's quite phenomenal. But he said, and I quote, he says, South Carolina is a handshake state. He says, when somebody gives me their hand and their word in South Carolina, I'd rather have that than a contract signed by everybody. And that's how we try to operate. And I remember also, maybe y'all have heard this, that Mark Clark, the general of World War II, later the president of Citadel, said at I think it was a commencement exercise, that there's more patriotism per square inch in South Carolina than any place in the world. And I think that's true, because that leads to what you see right here today. So we thank you very much for coming and look forward to seeing you again and hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary. Thank you, sir. A couple of things. I just want to thank a couple folks here. But first of all, we have taken copious notes as well, and so we've got this all recorded over here with our team. I want to thank Chairman Dan Beatty of the Military Base Task Force, the members of the task force for the work that they do with your communities and your bases. You're advocates, and they inform us in many cases, and so we appreciate their work, particularly in the work of the Military Enhancement Fund, which they really review those grant applications and provide those recommendations to the department. We appreciate that. I also want to make two quick call-outs. I want to recognize Sandy Claypool, the young lady in blue back there, and Mr. Jason Fowler over here at the desk, who really put this together and have been kind of working this whole piece. So thank you for what you all do as well. As we close out, I'm going to ask the command teams, if you could, we're going to fraggle this just a bit. Right behind me, you see a couple flags. We're going to ask all of you, with the governor and the speaker, to gather up here for a quick photograph, and then I'll dismiss you to wherever you need to go. And I'm sure our representatives from the agency want to thank you all for taking time out of your schedule to be here today. And after this photograph, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple follow-on quick engagements that they would appreciate with all of you as well. So, Governor, thank you. Mr. Speaker, thank you for coming out, and we look forward to seeing you again the next one of these, and call anytime.
Yes, sir.